Hi, everyone. I'm Emily.
And I'm Vince.
And this is the Lighthouse Lowdown. I had a little dance with that one that
That's
Vince
right.
could see.
A coffee-fueled dance.
Yeah.
With a little, I don't know if you picked it up on the mic, little. Yeah. So.
It's the nitro cold brew coming in hot.
We're high energy. We're high positivity. It's a good morning. Happy Saturday.
Yep.
I don't know if this is Saturday when you're listening, but it's Saturday when we're recording. So.
Yeah, so our episode today is going to be an interview with Toby Smith, who
Correct.
is fighting to have the rights to Paradise Island Lighthouse and do some renovating on it and a bunch of other ideas. So we're going to talk to him and hear what the plans are for Paradise Island Lighthouse.
That's right. Zoom in on the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Hello.
Whoa.
And then Nassau, shortly across from Nassau, there is Paradise Island, which we talked about previously, called Hog Island.
Yes, listen to our last episode if you don't know what we're talking about.
Check that one out. And then this one we talk with Toby Smith. Very interesting story.
Hey, Toby, can you hear us?
I can indeed.
Hey, how's it going?
Right. All is well. Thank you very much. How are you guys both doing?
We're good. We got our coffee and some kolaches going on.
The coffee and whatsies?
Kolaches.
I'm going to have to explain that one.
Okay.
They're like little dough pockets of stuff.
Nice. All right. Well, I just had my coffee. So, yeah. Well, thanks very much for inviting me to be on this call with you guys. I appreciate it.
You bet. We're excited to have you. We're actually already recording, so I'll go ahead and just kind of explain what our podcast is all about so you know what you're appearing on.
Right.
We are the Lighthouse Lowdown. We're a lighthouse history podcast where we cover one lighthouse per episode and just talk about its history, current events, what it looks like, what's been going on with it. So our last episode, Vince was the host, and he talked about Paradise Island Lighthouse. And as the co-host, you don't know anything about the lighthouse while the episode is going on. So he got to tell me all about it, and we're excited to have you on here and kind of tell us more.
Excellent. Lovely. Okay. Well, thank you very much again for having me on it. And that's a really cool, I guess, would you call it a hobby? To be hosting this Lighthouse Lowdown?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're trying to reach a little bit of a younger crowd than there's another podcast, Lighthearted, which is run by the US LHS. And we try to make it a little bit more hip for the young people.
Okay, well, I will try my best then.
All right, Vince, do you have any... You want to, I guess, Toby, you can start off just by telling us a little bit about you and how you came to have the Paradise Island Lighthouse.
Yeah, so I used to pass the lighthouse back when I was about 15 years old onwards in the boat, and I watched it slowly become more and more dilapidated. And I learned from another art project that if I'm not there to fill the gap and to do the work and restore something, then who is? So I stepped up to the plate with some other restoration work, and the same thought came to mind that if this lighthouse isn't going to get maintained and fixed up, then who better person to do it than me?
Right. That's awesome.
So I started the journey 11 years ago, and I am going through the process of what's required with government to go ahead and do it.
That's so wild. Toby, your signature line in your emails with us reads Captain Toby Smith, Lighthouse Keeper. So it sounds like you're also an entrepreneur and dare I say artist?
Right.
So
yes, yes, on both.
That's amazing. So so you saw the lighthouse, it was part of your experience being a local growing up. What does it take to actually acquire that land? I mean, I know we'll get into more subjects here because I've already cheated and listened to some of your other podcasts, but what does it take to actually purchase the land and then start to get into the restoration? What does it look like to start?
So a lot of patience. In order to apply, I haven't actually the process isn't ultimately to purchase the land. The lighthouse sits on what's called Crown land, which belongs to the Bahamian people, and it's administered by the government of the Bahamas. So the process is to apply, put in an application for Crown land, which I did. And after 8 years of trying, I landed a lease in my lap. And then things start getting a little bit dicey, and we're trying to straighten those things out now.
So what is the lease exactly? Like, what is all encompassed in the lease?
So the lighthouse sits on the western portion of Paradise Island, and there's approximately 16 and a half acres of Crown land on the western portion. And I have a lease of 2 acres around the lighthouse and 3 acres on the beach parcel. So the project is to fully restore the Paradise Island lighthouse that formerly was called the Hog Island Lighthouse. And it's going to be supported by the revenues that we generate at the beach club in order to do the restoration free of charge, so that there's no restoration bill to the Bahamian public nor to the Bahamian government.
Wow. That's so exciting. So
Yeah.
let's see. I listened to your lighthearted episode 154, which was about a year ago. I think it was January of 22. So in that episode, you walked Detremont through the plans for the land, but would you do that again for us? Would you tell us what all the plans include?
Yeah, so starting with the lighthouse, it is to fully restore the lighthouse, put in a proper replacement light rather than the harbor marker that's up there now. Still maintain as much as we can the original wood that is there, but to make it more safe and sound, it would be to do whatever replacements that we need to, and it's to use repurposed wood, or wood, for instance, that from pines that got hit by Hurricane Dorian from Abaco. It's a really strong wood, and we'd like to repurpose that, I think, as a fitting memory to those that were lost in Abaco for Hurricane Dorian. So fully restore the lighthouse, fully restore the lighthouse keeper's quarters. We're in touch with 3 of the children of the last lighthouse keeper, Mr. Hall, who was out at the Paradise Island Light until 1968. So to fully restore the keeper's quarters and to install a dock so that people can access it safely and have historical and cultural tours and be able to be walked through in several languages. The site itself, there's lots of histories and mysteries out there to be explained. And you get a perfect view of Nassau to be able to explain what the other historical buildings are on Nassau from the top of the lighthouse. And then incredible. To fully develop a beach club. So the beach club will be down the ways. It's an absolutely stunning beach. It's the last piece of Crown land that's left on Paradise Island. And the beach is a commodity for us Bahamians. It's a diminishing resource. So I'd like to be able to expand on the access so that people will be able to come over to the lighthouse and to the beach club, be able to grab a burger and a beer and relax in a safe, beautiful environment with a sustainable tourism product.
Awesome.
Yeah, so the land
sounds like really amazing.
Well, we're trying to make it like a utopia, and the land will still remain the property of the Bahamian people. It's just a lease. And I say it restores the lighthouse and the keeper's quarters for free. So every element of what we're trying to do out there has to pass a very simple litmus test of, is this best for the Bahamas and is this best for Bahamians?
That's a great plan.
We're trying.
Well, it's one hand shakes the other, really, of having something people want to come see that's absolutely gorgeous just in the land itself, and then having the lighthouse be able to benefit and to thrive, and then also feed back into the attraction of that land.
Absolutely. And I think that historical and cultural tourism is something that is trending upwards. I think that people that are not only lighthouse enthusiasts, but historical enthusiasts, but I think that there's something, and I'm sure that you share it doing a blog, that there's magical things about lighthouses that people, fall in love with these structures to the extent, I mean, I've fallen in love with this one and got a new hobby of loving lighthouses.
We always pick the most expensive hobbies in
Yeah.
this household.
Yeah.
Between lighthouses and boats, there's probably there's two front runners right there.
Yeah. What was there's some acronym for boat, bill out another 1,000,
That's
BOAT.
it.
I've heard that.
Exactly right. At least, yeah.
Yeah. I'm
So
stuck. Go ahead.
as we see the Nassau cruise port has just expanded so that it's now the largest cruise port in the Caribbean. We've got what's predicted to be 7 million tourists as passengers passing into the harbor and passing our light. That it's 4 minutes from downtown. We want to maintain the natural beauty over there rather than just pushing down the native bush and flora and fauna. Is just to maintain in a natural setting, so that people can experience what I believe people are now turning towards is getting back to nature more.
Right. So there's I looked up photos, of course, of your land and the lighthouse, and what comes up are those cruise ships passing right by. So they literally pass right by your land on the way to the harbor. Is that right?
That's right. I can literally, depending upon the direction of the breeze, standing at the top of the lighthouse, I can literally have a conversation with people that are on the cruise ship. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's the best advertisement there is.
Well, yeah. So we're trying to make it. We've picked up support over the years from various other institutions and people, including the children of the lighthouse keeper that was out there before, or the environmentalists. We've engaged them. We've shared our plans. We're transparent and take on their advice and suggestions. The Nassau Cruise Port has endorsed us by a letter of support. The ministry and the Deputy Prime Minister of Tourism, he has given us his support, as well as the Minister of Tourism. So we've got a lot of local stakeholders, including environmentalists, support, et cetera, that have bought into this idea. And so we're pressing on with trying to bring it to fruition.
That's incredible. So these 7 million tourists come to Paradise Island, Hog Island itself.
No, they come to Nassau Harbor on the cruise lines, and then and where they go from there, we'd like to be able to welcome them over to the beach club, but on a sustainable level.
I see. Yeah, that'd be excellent. You got to find that right balance.
Exactly right. Yeah.
The monster on the island is the Great Atlantis Resorts, and really, I don't know what else to call it, but it's much of the land on Paradise Island. Is that right?
It's a substantial. It is a substantial resort in the whole Caribbean, let alone on Paradise Island. Yes, and fortunately, we've picked up their support also. That they, we're working with each other through dialogue to make sure that that we fit in. And fortunately, Atlantis have bought into that, where they support our venture and they're looking to help us in many meaningful ways. So it's kind of the opposite of what we're trying to do out there for us, but there's a space and place for everybody, I feel.
Yep. Got to have friendly neighbors. Can't hurt.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point indeed. So basically, I think that Atlantis being one of the highest employment contributors to the Bahamas, and not only that, but those employment figures with Bahamians is very important to me. And there's others that hire non-Bahamians, or bring a crew off of the cruise ship in order to do things that Bahamians can do. I don't agree with that principle.
Yeah, you can't take away that opportunity from locals. That's just,
exactly.
Just not
and
right.
the money of revenues that are earned by Bahamians in the Bahamas remains in the Bahamas, and I'd like to see as much revenue that's generated in the Bahamas remain here. And I think there needs to be a bit of a shift in the balance between what cruise ships generate in the Bahamas and how much actually stays here in the country, so that we can benefit from it directly financially without mitigating having to give up our natural environment.
Yeah, I don't think it can be overstated from our research and our discussion that the amount of money in tourism that comes and then the money that goes away is really a shame. So it's exciting that you, a Bahamian yourself, is doing this work. So I think that's awesome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And sometimes it's a lonely battle being at the front line, but it's within my heart to do so. And as an advocate and somewhat of an activist, I think it's important that we do find that balance.
Now, do you have a question?
Yeah. So you were talking about how you were going to restore the lighthouse, and I was wondering if it's still going to be an active guide to navigation when you're all finished with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we're in contact with somebody that is in Florida that fabricates lighthouse lights, the lanterns, and it's our hope that we can get him to make us either a brand new one or find one that we can restore, but absolutely maintain it as a navigation aid. It's an important part of our historical tapestry. There's a dozen lighthouses in the Bahamas. The Hopetown Lighthouse in Abaco, they just are going through a renovation and restoration process now, and that's the last hand-wound kerosene fire lighthouse left in the world.
Wow.
And unfortunately, it's the only lighthouse that's been restored in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the lighthouses, with the exception of Hopetown, could use a facelift. And what's better than a free facelift?
Right.
Yeah. So it's absolutely to restore it to its former glory. It's absolutely to maintain it as a navigation aid. And incidentally, I've gone to the Department of Archives and I've researched to find any communication literature, but the Hog Island Lighthouse was built before Trinity House was established in England with the Imperial Lighthouse Service. Mm-hmm. So there's not that much documentation or architectural plans and whatnot because it simply wasn't consolidated at Trinity House. So one of the I read a letter by a former lighthouse keeper of the Hog Island Light, and you can follow the trail, and it was always referred to as not being a very strong light. So I hope to change that and make it a very bright light. Right. And when ships enter the harbor, if the harbor entrance is closed, then they put a red glass over the light called a chimney. Mm-hmm. To let everybody know that it's red is danger and not to try and enter the harbor.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So will people be able to climb the lighthouse when you're finished with it as well?
Yeah, so ultimately what we'd like to do is to be able to have an app on your phone that you can download and then listen in various languages, so that as you move over the property of the lighthouse, that it explains what you're seeing on the horizon, on land, and walk through when it was built. Just really cool stories of informing people of Bahamian history.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And we were just talking about when we were covering this lighthouse, Vince was telling me about if you go on, what is it, like Travelocity or Yelp or something, people would be like, oh, you can get to the lighthouse if you go around a fence and you avoid these dogs and you do all this stuff.
So there's some article I read that I shared, and I put a heavy note before and after to not do this, but someone had written an article about how to physically get to your land through seemed someone else's land, and it involved jumping fences and running from dogs, and I was like, this contact Toby.
It's a trek.
That's probably the best
good comment. And people have contacted me, and it is a trek, and it shows you the desire that people have for lighthouses, because they do make that trek. And you're right, it is a trek. So there's a lot of people that go to Atlantis that see the lighthouse and make it their, what someone told me yesterday, on their bucket list to come out and see it. So it just goes to show you the lengths that people go through, climbing over Honeycomb Rock and avoiding security and getting challenged by dogs. And it should be a lot easier. And that's why our plan is to put in a dock and have a ferry boat operate between downtown and the beach club and out to the lighthouse. And you'd be able to jump on and off as you please.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I feel like that would be very successful just because, I mean, this is kind of like a change of subject, but lighthouses usually carry a lot of meaning locally. They affect, the culture. Like Vince and I went to the Outer Banks in North Carolina, and everywhere you looked, there were depictions of the lighthouses that were around. And they talked about just millions of people coming to visit the lighthouses every year, which is where locally a lot of money would come from tourists and things. So is that kind of what you see with this lighthouse too, is a lot of local pride surrounding it?
Absolutely. Yes. There is a lot of local pride, and you don't miss something until it's gone. And we're really trying to make an intervention to be able to make that available so that, we're preserving it for future generations to be able to go out there. So a lot of our history, unfortunately, is being lost. And a lot of the history that's necessarily taught directly or indirectly is only history that happened after our independence in 1973. Yeah. So we're trying to go back beyond 1973 into, very interesting stories and history that we believe is going to appeal to a lot of people. There's a lot of interest out there for it. And, it's not going to take much to blow the lantern room off of the top of the lighthouse. It's been, right. I've tried my best, and if that goes, we're going to have to start from scratch as far as the lantern room itself. But we hope to intervene and preserve our natural history.
That's incredible. So Toby, you've been doing work on the lighthouse and the land yourself in this time, this last couple of years. Is that right?
Well, not really. So we've been doing cleanups, and we've been trying to slow down the process of dilapidation. We've actually, during COVID, I've been trying my best as an owner of a couple of companies. I've been trying my best to keep my teams employed. Yeah. So during COVID, we were actually going through building out a treehouse over at the beach club, of keeping it was a good team building exercise, and we get a result of a really cool treehouse at the end of it. But we've done a lot of the cleanups, and as things fall apart, we've been sort of keeping them so that we can reinstall them at a later date. But yeah, we've been held back. We were offered a lease by the previous administration of government. And just a few short weeks after that, we were told by someone else in government, the Attorney General, that our lease wasn't valid. So I had to protect my interest, and I took the government to court to sue them to have my lease validated by the Supreme Court of the Bahamas. We've had the case, we've had the full hearing, and a decision is forthcoming. And in the meantime, yes, we're actually going to get started. And as far as I'm concerned, our lease is valid, and we're moving forward.
Awesome.
So tell us more about that.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that, because last I heard, I think it was a year ago on the Lighthearted podcast, that you were entering into this legal battle. What was that experience like?
What was that experience like? Well, I think my hand was forced, and obviously we gotta protect our interests. So what it was like was that so basically it was our 8th year of trying to get this lease that we finally got the lease. And I've always been very guarded in my celebration, even though, getting the lease is a major milestone. I had to be conservative in my euphoria in finally meeting that milestone. And sure enough, it revealed itself just 6 weeks later, where I found out that the government had offered some of the same land, which had completely run over our beach parcel, to Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines. So the Prime Minister, the ex-Prime Minister, the shortest serving Prime Minister in the history of the Bahamas so far, decided to double dip and offer the same piece of land to two parties. And I felt it appropriate to sue the government to protect our interests.
Wow.
It's like about as bad as it could go.
Well, as bad as they want to try push it, but I drew a line in the sand, literally, and I sent a photograph of it out into the press. And it was so when we were ready to engage the government, we did so, and we've fortunately gone through the full hearing. I'm not gonna obviously comment on how I'm not directing anybody in the judiciary as to how they should rule it, but we're absolutely optimistic and hopeful that we get a ruling in our favor. That would make it a lot cleaner for everybody, rather than create, this doubt and this muddy the waters. Unfortunately, I think that it's pressure by Royal Caribbean, because they want to put in a beach club and they want to have all this crown land, and they want to be able to charge, Bahamians a discounted rate to what their passengers will, but only on days where Royal Caribbean doesn't have a ship in port, which, the logic of charging Bahamians to access our own crown land beach in the Bahamas, when they already have a whole key of crown land, to me is ludicrous. So I pushed back, and I actually understand now that RCL have proposed to the government a smaller footprint beach club, which backs off of my boundaries.
Oh,
wow.
Right. So I'm waiting for it to be formally conceded. But in the meantime, if that's indeed the case, then that's another victory for us. But again, I have to contain my excitement that we've fought in a David versus two Goliaths, and it looks like Toby's come out on top.
All right, Toby, good work. Again, I'm with you on the guarded celebration, but that is it was very interesting to hear you talk about that case. And Royal Caribbean, do they have other? So that you mentioned they have other crown land leasing. Is that on Paradise Hog Island itself, or is that off on Nassau? Or
so Royal Caribbean actually brag about what they call Coco Cay, which its indigenous Bahamian name is Little Stirrup Key. So I think it's cultural misappropriation by putting their own name on our own island, and that entire island, yes, indeed, is crown land. Royal Caribbean also were negotiating with the government of the Bahamas to buy a hotel in Grand Bahama, which the government paid $65 million for. And Royal Caribbean were trying to pick it up for, I think, about $15 million, where they were looking for the Bahamian people to finance their purchase of this hotel, where payments wouldn't start until late next decade.
Oh.
So they want to pick it up for a steal. They want the Bahamian people to fund it. And when this new administration government came in, they said that they are not, they're going to disengage from Royal Caribbean, and that went south and never materialized. But I think that Royal Caribbean were trying to leverage the fact that they might buy this property in Grand Bahama, and oh, by the way, give us this crown land on Paradise Island as an incentive that we might, actually go ahead and buy this hotel. So they had the last government over a barrel, and I think that while this administration were in opposition, they said that any crown lease for Royal Caribbean that was done for Paradise Island, that this administration will cancel that deal.
And could you remind me, the new administration, when was that roughly coming into?
That was September. September made a year. No, I beg your pardon. They called an early election. So Minnis was the Free National Movement prime minister, which is the last administration. They were supposed to have general elections by September of last year. He made the decision to call early elections and lost by a landslide.
Oh, no.
So this new administration has been in power for almost a year and a half.
Okay. That's incredible. Yeah. So the Bahama Islands won their independence 50 years ago
Yeah,
from
that's
England.
right. Yeah,
So
from England.
I don't mean to go, it's just beyond what I know, but is this the Crown land and this type of dispute, has that been something that's been kind of recurring for different folks? Especially, I assume, when it comes to large amounts of money and these large tourism companies. I assume they have a big part in that.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, they do. So there's approximately, when the last official number, I think that it was posted by the government, was that there is 35,000 applications that sit at the Department of Lands and Surveys for Crown land. And in my my purview, I believe that if somebody decides today that they want to apply for Crown land, then they should be number 35,001. And they don't get their case heard until the decision is made on everybody else prior to them.
Yeah.
Well, RCL's application was certainly fast-tracked, and having seen a copy of their lease, unfortunately, it doesn't mention exactly where the land is, or a site plan. And I met with RCL about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, and they asked me for a copy of my site plan so that they could consider putting a beach club on a reduced footprint over on Paradise Island. So I obliged. I sent them a copy of my site plan, and they responded a few days later to say, well, don't worry, we've recently signed a lease with the government. So, no need to bother with you, Toby. So I said, okay, well, send me a copy of your site plan then, please. And they did. And what they sent me was my site plan that the government gave to me that had been PDF highlighted. And they were submitting that as being their site plan.
Oh my gosh.
So for a multi-billion international, multinational company to be swung that they don't even have a site plan or legal description in their lease, to me is unfathomable. So
that's creative.
Yeah.
They broke out their highlighters and gave you the old scanned PDF back. That is incredible.
It is incredible. So for them to send me my own site plan, but the plot's thickened, but I can't share all the details. But okay. There's certain things that I don't think were done fairly nor rightly, and I've always encouraged RCL to come to the table and have a chat. And they said that, Toby, your fight is not with us, it's with the Bahamian government. You continue how you see fit, and we'll continue with our negotiations with the government. But getting back at the beginning of this, it was that that balance, that economic balance of what's fair for what Bahamians receive, given the fact of all these revenues being generated in the Bahamas, and how the cruise lines immediately export a lot of that revenue out in what's called leakage. We're trying to bring that balance back and trying to convince us that, when Christopher Columbus first came to our shores in 1492, he came with, a big ship with lots of promises in search for gold, gave the locals sort of beads and shiny objects, trying to convince us to give up our goods. And frankly, it seems as though nothing has changed now in modern day, with people coming in big ships, making big promises, looking for gold, exploiting what they can and taking out of the country. I think that Bahamians have to put their foot down and say that it's us that have the goods.
Yeah.
And absolutely. There has to be a better, more balanced economic division with the locals. And that's why our project is only going to hire Bahamians. It'll only be Bahamian products that are for sale over there, and keep that money in the local economy, and it will circulate many, many, many times before it's exported in importing foreign goods.
Right. Yeah, I think it'd be such a I hate to use the word value because it implies money, but there'd be such a high value for people who visit, tourists, to meet you and work with Bohemians and visit a Bohemian site like you're talking about, like the beach club, to
Indeed.
see something truly local rather than something that's constructed,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that, having looked at there's other islands. I mean, we've got 700 islands and keys in the Bahamas, and one of the places that's highly successful is where the last lighthouse that I referred to, the Hopetown Lighthouse, is situated. And actually, it's nicknamed Hollywood because there's so many, celebrities and stars and whatnot that go there for quiet vacations away from all the hustle and bustle of the media. And we've learned from that, and also another destination called Harbor Island, where what I believe the success is that Bill Gates can go to Harbor Island and sit at the bar, not be inundated by the media, and mix with a local and share our culture and history with each other. Unfortunately, there's cultural segregation on these private islands that the likes of RCL run, where Bahamians have a job picking up garbage or cleaning bathrooms or janitorial jobs that, yes, such jobs are important to the economy. But if that's the only job that's being offered, and we have to sit as Bahamians and watch chefs and waiters coming off the ship, bartenders, I mean, Bahamians can do those jobs also.
Right.
So
Right.
I think there's a lot of cultural misappropriation, but I think that a resort, a place that has access where Bahamians can come as well as tourists, I think is going to be the successful mix where we could all enjoy the place together.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think you've got a great prospect. I think we're on your side, and whenever you get your decision back, hopefully that's just a affirmation to the work that you're doing now. It just continues your momentum.
Well said. Yeah, I think it will be affirmation. I mean, we'd be guarded, and again, but we're certainly pressing on, and I'm not, as far as I'm concerned, we have a valid lease, and we're just going to start. Hopefully we do get a ruling which affirms what our belief is, and if the ruling is perhaps not in our favor, then we'll appeal it. We'll take it all the way to the Privy Council in England if necessary.
Yeah, well, we're rooting for you. Is there any way that our listeners can kind of support you in getting this lighthouse available?
Yes, there's several ways. I mean, we're on Facebook under Paradise Hog Island Lighthouse. We our website, just a Google search will bring us about Paradise Island Lighthouse.com. I know that for your younger viewers, Facebook or listeners, Facebook isn't necessarily the platform, but on Instagram we're there. It's PI Lighthouse. Just as much agitation and support as we can get, we'd really appreciate it. And I mean, Toby at Paradise Island Lighthouse.com, and there's lots of ways to reach, and we appreciate everybody that supports us.
Well, we appreciate you coming on the show. We'll definitely spread the word, and we always link up all the things
Thank
we
you
can
to you
find.
both. Yeah,
to,
we
to
actually
the show notes.
We hosted our first event venue yesterday, where a event company called Outstanding in the Field partnered up with a local celebrity chef here called Brentford Hall, and we had about 100 people on the beach getting served a 6-course meal with a big long table running down the beach, right at the waterside, a beautiful sunset towards the end of the event. Just a really nice, natural, Bahamian prepared, outstanding in the field meal.
A day in paradise.
That's awesome.
It was absolutely fabulous. I don't think it could have been better. And I'll send you guys pictures. I know they won't be able to see the pictures on the blog, but we're positioning ourselves that we're going to start and not wait up.
Yeah. Please do. So any venture like this takes capital, it takes some cash. So
Yeah.
the efforts that you've taken so far, are you, maybe it's your personal business and that's fine if that's the answer, but are you seeking funding at this time, or are there several phases of, first comes the keeper's house, or first comes the beach club for guests, or
Yeah.
what's first, I guess?
First is that, yes, we are raising capital. We've got a lot of interest from, I call them potential investors.
Mhm.
And that's simply because until that I can get the security that my lease is validated,
Right.
I'm not accepting anybody's cash. I don't want it to seem as though I'm accepting cash and then they're put on the merry-go-round as myself.
Mm-hmm.
So once I have the affirmation of my lease being validated, then we'll be raising capital through a private placement where we're looking to raise $3 million. There'll be about an 18-month build-out period. And then we will start to service our loan. We'll go and open the beach club first, which will be generating revenues that we can put back into the restoration of the lighthouse and fully restore the lighthouse with additional revenues that we're borrowing in a loan. And then the beach club and lighthouse will be fully restored, access with the docks. And then, yes, it will be phases thereafter that where we see, the greater successes being driven, then we can expand upon those and introduce some other creative things also. So once we're in full swing, at the beach club will be just like a small, I would say a little village kind of thing, mm-hmm. with our own Bahamian building techniques and architecture. And then we'll be able to have like a resident artist doing a 3 months or 6 months program over there with different mediums, sculpture, watercolors, etc. But to really embrace what the Bahamas has to offer, that tourists like to see, experience, taste, smell, listen to over there. So it'll be a small village. They say they actually say that Hopetown is a small drinking village with a fishing problem. That will that's the kind, we'll be like a sort of a small Bahamian village over there with day cabanas and food and beverage.
It's incredible.
Sounds amazing.
I would like to recognize your vision is so exciting for me to hear about and be keeping up with you lately. And I want to share with our listeners that I think you're an incredible person. You're working so hard. Aww. All the way from the sand to the top of that lighthouse, because
thank you so much.
I sent you some emails. We're trying to set up this call.
Right.
And at first I wanted to speak on the phone to just check in, make sure that we could connect and have this. And I said, hey, I'm in the airport. And what I meant was that I'm in the airport on the way to see my family for Christmas. And right. You were just leaving the site. And I think that you had been working there, it sounded like, for the morning with your crew. And right. You said, well, if you're in the airport, we can get together. I can come find you. I was like, wow, that is very kind of you with no warning at all.
Man. I'm very flattered. Thank you. We'll we go the extra mile, man. And someone's asked me recently, well, what experience do you have, Toby? And I actually had to calculate it in my mind how long I've been a captain for. So I mean, I learned how to drive a boat when I was about 13 years old, a motorized boat. And then I used to run a boat at 15 by myself for parasailing. I was the youngest captain in the front of Paradise Island for parasailing. So without giving away my age, I've been doing this for decades. That's a good thing. And I also, Bahamas Air Sea Rescue, I used to be a duty officer there and a boat captain for them too. So search and rescue, first responding after Hurricane Dorian, helping out with Abaco and whatnot. I think that the position of a lighthouse keeper is a big responsibility that I think that the recognition that they get is diminishing actually, mm-hmm. with the automation many lighthouses, or the dereliction of lighthouses, that I want to be able to fit into that role where, search and rescue and an aid to navigation. But having been out on the sea and seeing light, I think is comforting, especially in rough seas, that it gives you a sense of safety, knowing that perhaps somebody's there, that if things was to go south, that people will come out and help you.
Yeah, I agree with that. All these lighthouses that we cover, often the history that we cover ends with, yep, it was automated in 19, so ever, or 2000, whatever, depending
and now
on the.
It's like local people are the ones that are stepping forward and trying to preserve the history and like all the culture that comes along with the lighthouses.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see that you're doing that as well. And I feel like all the ideas you have for preserving the lighthouse and the land and the ideas you have are really great, something that we're happy to stand behind.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate it. Unfortunately, I mean, I call it in my presentation, a silent sentinel of the sea. And, what they give, and just sitting there silently, it is a lot. And yes, they are becoming more and more automated, which I think is sad. But one very important point for me is that they shouldn't be abandoned, nor should those that wish to restore and maintain and continue their legacy, should they be blocked or impeded. It should be embraced, and right. Things done to, hey, that's a fabulous idea, says the government, let's jump behind this and make it good for all. But that's proven to be a very difficult thing to do, unfortunately.
Well, there's a lot of work, it sounds like.
Yep, a lot of work to do.
Well, it's a labor of love too. So very frankly, I mean, when you look at it, it's 68 foot tall. It's a round building, obviously, but I had my own painting company in the past, so painting it isn't going to be an issue. I've done sandblasting in the past. That's not going to be an issue. It's mitigating the blockages rather than me being able to be set free and make a success that we can put on a world stage, so that when guests visit the Bahamas, it's the first thing that they see entering Nassau Harbor as a historical building. It's a first impression that they could say, wow, look at that lovely lighthouse. It looks almost brand new.
Well, you got the right man for the job, it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, it's not me that we need to convince, though, right?
Yeah.
So we're plodding on, man. We'll press on regardless. It's had its highs. It's also had its lows. That it's only me. I don't have the engagement of a PR firm. All of the media that you see out there pretty much is just me behind it. I think it's an important lesson to young people that don't give up on your aspirations. I have to set an example for my daughter. I always tell her in life, like, you never give up. You keep on trying. So I have to keep on trying in all this lot. And I think that it's a good example to set. And I'd encourage anybody, not necessarily just for lighthouses, but, all your dreams and aspirations to follow them. And this has been an 11-year journey. It's been a lot of time that I've invested in it. And I'm going to win. So, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, we'll link your website and your Instagram and all of that in our show notes, so that our listeners can go and take a look and support you in that way. And you mentioned if you had pictures or something, you could email them to us, because we have an Instagram where we post photos related to each episode, so that listeners can actually see what we're talking about. So if you have any pictures you'd like to send our way so that listeners can see what we're talking about, then that'd be great.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. I mean, audio is great. Visual representation will be absolutely fabulous. If we've got the opportunity for that too, then yes, Vincent and Emily, I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for talking to us and being on our podcast.
It's my pleasure. I've actually got it's blowing like crazy. A cold front came in last night. And we've got to go over and take some things that were left over from last night, bring it back to Nassau. So I'll be out there, and I'll be thinking of you guys and your listeners. I really appreciate your interest in this, and I hope that one day soon that we can bring some more good news to what's going on over there.
Yeah, we'd love
Yeah.
to catch up with you. We'll try to keep up. And as you keep your project underway, please keep us in mind. Say hello to the Lighthouse for us.
Yeah.
We wish you all the best.
I will. I'll send you a real-time photo today.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Much, Toby.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Emily. I appreciate you. I appreciate your listeners. I appreciate Lighthouse fans. And I think if we all get behind each other's projects and aspirations, then there's more result that's going to come through unity and us doing it together. The Bahamian, what is that? Not slogan, but forward, upward, onward, together is our national. I don't know what it's.
War cry.
What would that be called? Well, yeah, a war cry in this instance, yeah. So we'll continue plodding on ahead.
Great. Well, you have a nice weekend, Toby. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend too. All the very best to you both. And again, thank you.
Cheers. That was great.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. He is a very special person. It was nice of him to first email with us and then talk to us about actually recording. And then intentionally, I did not talk to him other than the one phone call about just kind of seeing how we'd all sound on the phone,
Yeah.
make sure we're all good to go, have a conversation. So
He's got a very pleasant laugh.
yeah. He's
That's how you know
great voice.
the quality of somebody is their laugh. That's why mine is so annoying.
I'm sorry for that, everyone. I did want to mention it's a loose promise from me, Vince, that I'm working with YouTube.
Vincent Bailey.
I'm working with YouTube. We're going to be uploading. For sure, I can say we're going to do this episode, and so we're going to be on YouTube. I'm going to say from now on, and we're not doing live video. I don't think you want to see my face for that long, but we are going to do still photos of the content that we reference. So as I say, oh, the lighthouse was blank in the 1883, then I'm going to show you the lighthouse in 1883 best I can. So photos will go along with the podcast audio, which I think is I've heard that's a fun way to follow along, because that way you do not have to watch a video, but if we mention something that you want to see, look down, you'll probably see it. So
It's a good idea.
yeah, if I can explore other ways to do that are not on YouTube, I may, but for now, that's my primary effort.
It's a good plan.
So
I would do that if I listened to podcasts.
yeah, personally. You're at work, you open a new tab, YouTube,
Casually.
But
Yeah.
that's all I wanted to say. Do you have anything else you want to mention?
Nope.
Are we still doing stickers?
Yeah. You mean of Standard Rock?
Yeah, Standard Rock.
Yeah. If you donate to Standard Rock Restoration, then go ahead and send me a screenshot and I'll send you a sticker.
If you haven't watched that episode, you should check it out.
Yeah. That's pretty much all there is to it.
All right.
Yeah. So you should check us out on Instagram at the Lighthouse Lowdown. You can go to our website, podpage.com/the Lighthouse Lowdown, where you can listen to all of our episodes and also find out where else you can listen to us, like Apple and Google and all of that stuff. And that's it.
That's it. Bye.
Thanks for listening, and we hope you catch us next time on the Lighthouse Lowdown.
Hi, I'm Toby, and I'm coming to you from Paradise Hog Island Lighthouse and Beach Club in the Bahamas.